enjoy right now. But if something were to go down for any reason, I'll be glad to let everybody know. You know, I gotta, my staff is my heart, so, and the students, so I gotta make sure that they're good. But we should be okay with coverage. I'm not needed until 12 o'clock for lunch duty. So there we go. All right. I have the presentation that I have set up is actually going to be through Pear Deck, if anybody's familiar with Pear Deck. And so what you're going to be doing is I'm going to share my screen with you, but I'll put it in the chat here, and I'll type in joinpd.com is where you're going to go. And then when you go to joinpd.com, you should have a code that you're going to type in, and I'm going to put that code in the chat. And I will also, I believe I'll have access here to share my screen, and it should show up. And so hopefully what you'll see on the screen, you should see it says moment of silence. And if you see that, can a few of you either put something in the chat that says I see it, or thumbs up on the screen so I can see that you guys can see what I see? Perfect. That means I did it right. Woo woo. Awesome. So so what we're going to be doing today, I'm actually going to kind of take you through what I do with my staff. And then we're going to have an opportunity today to roll back the curtain, to do some reflection. So everything I'm going to be doing with you is what I actually do with them. So you're going to be kind of feeling what it feels like, looks like, and sounds like in real time. So that way, if it's something that you want to try with your organization as well, then you already kind of know what it feels like. So that way you'll be able to speak on it and say, yes, I remember what that felt like. I want to do it this way, or I want to change it up to make it look like something else, but at least I have some idea of what it looks like. So we're going to, and with Pear Deck, if you're familiar with Pear Deck is going to allow you to actually interact on the screen. And if for some reason it does not allow you to interact on the screen, then we'll have a backup plan. Okay. All right. So my, what we're going to do here to make sure that everybody was able to get into Pear Deck and join in, if you can see it on the screen, you should be able to manipulate your icon. So if you use your cursor, use your mouse, and if you're able to move that around, if you guys could do that for me so I can see if it's working. Do you see icons moving around on the screen? And if you do, can you give me a thumbs up or write it in the chat?
I can only see my own.
You should see your own. Very good. Okay. And I actually see everybody else's. So here's what we're going to do. To make sure that this works, I'm going to ask you a question. If you say yes, you're going to move it to the green. If you say no, you're going to move it to the red. Ready? The question is, I love candy canes. Yes, green. No, red. I love candy canes. Move your cursor to that circle. Yes, I love candy canes is green. No is a red. And we have some people who are not quite sure if they like candy canes or not. So they're right there in the middle.
No, it's not like them, it's love them. You said love. That's the one.
Yeah. So on my end, it does look like that you guys are able to move around on the screen. So that's awesome. And it looks like we have a split as far as this group, whether or not you like candy canes. So here's my next question. And you're going to use the same cursors, use the same blue buttons, green if you agree, red if you disagree. The question is this: we have a lot of people hurting right now that are in our workplace, and whether it's COVID or whatever, we have a lot of people hurting right now. Is that a yes, we have a lot of people hurting right now, or no, we do not? Do we have a lot of people hurting right now? Yes or no? So it looks like on my screen, I have the majority, a huge section, if everybody is saying yes, we've got some people hurting. So what I hope today is in our conversation with each other that you'll be able to get some ideas on ways in which we can help support one another, embed this into your culture. And then, you might actually today, it might be the first time for you today to actually think about some things too for yourself regarding where you are as far as being able to support yourself, because it's hard for you to give to others when your cup is also empty. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. All right, so here we go. I'm going to advance the slide here, and you should see up on the screen, it's going to say making connections. So we're going to be pulling back the curtain today. So when you pull back the curtain, it's kind of that reference from Wizard of Oz, which is my absolute favorite movie of all time. I think it's the best one out there. But it talks about how when you pull back the curtain, you see what's really going on. And so that's going to be part of that story that I'll share with you today. And that story that you also have to be thinking about for yourself. We're going to do it like this. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. We're going to talk you through it. Everybody ready for that? Here we go.
Yes.
No worries. So we're going to go down right here. And it's not even allowing me to bring up like Google Deck, nothing like that. So we're just going to keep going. All right. So we're going to pull back that curtain and just know I actually do see you. And when I say I see you, I've walked in a lot of your shoes. And after we talk through some stories today, you're going to probably hear some other shoes that you've walked in, but just know I see you. Now that our Pear Deck is acting a little weird and Google Drive's acting a little weird on my end, and I'm showing it, showing the presentation kind of like this, just know we're going to be using the chat a lot today, which will be okay. And Ronette, if you guys can help with the breakout room, we'll do it like that.
Absolutely.
And just show me lots of grace today, if you don't mind. And just know it's going to be good, and we're going to keep going. So everybody's good with that? All right. So here's what we're going to do. One of the things that I love to do with my staff is always make sure that whatever we talk about, they find a way to make sure that it applies to what they're doing in their classroom, applying to what they do in their own lives, some sort of a balance. I hate to just talk about things and there's no way to reflect. I'm a huge reflection person. So one of the things that I want you to be able to do before we move further is find, if you have it with you, you'll need some kind of way to document your thinking. Now, one way that you could document your thinking, if you have paper, and I had it set up there in our little slide, but I'm going to use some paper right next to me. So if you have paper and you set it up on the right side, you'll write right side and you have left side. The right side of your paper is where you write your new knowledge. The left side of your paper is where you write how you apply the knowledge that you received. And some of you will be familiar with this, called right side, left side. So when you are looking at taking your notes today, right side, left side. And so that's what I mean by you'll need a way to document your thinking, that left side, right side, because we're going to go back and forth between applying our thinking today. Okay. So one of the ways that I start off with my staff, especially this is a new group that I'm with, we've only been together a short period of time. But one of the ways that we started off is I just had them just reflect on a specific question. So what we're going to do right now is just reflect, and you're not going to share anything out. You're just going to write this down on your own paper. And then I'll tell you in a little while why I'm starting off like this. But what is filling your bucket today and what's draining it? And we're not going to share it out. So I'll give you a few seconds to just jot down what is filling your bucket today and what is draining your bucket. So on the right-hand side, you have self-reflection, but you don't have anything on the left-hand side yet if you're taking notes like that. And on the right-hand side, it'll say self-reflection. And then what's filling it and what's draining it. And I'm going to do the same thing that you guys are doing. So I'm going to show you an exemplar of what I mean by this, and hopefully you'll be able to pick it up on your screen there. And so there's a question there. It says, what is filling my bucket today? Well, I'm going to show you what is filling my bucket today. Can everybody see that in their screen? So that little munchkin that I'm showing you in the screen, that is a brand new grandbaby boy, and he is filling my bucket today. He loves his grandma. I am his favorite, 100%. I do no wrong in his eyes. That is what's filling my bucket today. This is a huge reason why I roll out of bed a lot of times right now. What's draining my bucket is, I already shared with you this morning, the COVID stuff. I could also add in technology if I wanted to, but I'm not going to add that in because I'm not going to let that still. But that's an example of what's filling your bucket and what's draining it. But we're not going to, you guys are not going to share that out. I just shared an exemplar with you of what that looks like, sounds like, and feels like. And you may still be jotting that down, and that's fine. I'm going to move to the next slide. So our objectives today, spending time together. I want you to be able at the end to be able to know your story and be able to own your story. Some collaboration, some call to action, some reflection time, and then we're going to try some activities together. Now the activities, if I can get the Pear Deck and all that to start working here in between some breaks there, we'll get it to work. If not, we'll maneuver around using chat and having some people volunteer to share out, but we'll walk through that. But those are our objectives today. Okay, so based on below, I want you to think about your objective. And I call it a blank slate. Leaders need to be able to self-advocate. We want you to be able to help your staff create a safe environment for advocating or being an advocator, and then making sure that the adults in the organization or on your campus are able to model for the students and others. Okay, so based on everything that's listed below, because that's how I want you to walk out of this today, that you feel like that you have some tool in your tool belt to be able to help advocate and create a culture that culture of self-care, taking care of yourself and for others, and you know what that looks like, balancing self-care with the accountability of things that needs to occur. I want you to be thinking about, well, what is something that you would like to walk away from today with our conversation together today regarding advocating, self-care, and balancing the work that needs to occur. So this is where the notes that you're taking or the journaling that you're doing, I'm going to pause there for a second and allow you to jot some of that down for yourself. You're thinking, what is something that you would like to walk away with today? So I'm going to give you, I'll give you about a minute to think through that.
Do we jot this down on the left side or the right side?
So you'll do that on the right side. You'll write down my objective, and then on the right side, you write down your objective of what you would like to take away today, because the left side is where you're going to write your application of the learning that you have. So all on the right side right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I'm going to switch to the next slide here. So actually, let me go back to the slide here. So I'm going to stop there for a second, and let's see if I can see everybody. I want to tell you real quick here why I chose to start everything off the way I did. So now I'm going to give you some applications for the left-hand side. So at the very, very beginning, we started off, she shared who I was. And before I came on and said, okay, I need everybody to start sharing out information, I didn't do that because we don't know each other. And one of the things that I think sometimes that we do wrong when we get together, we ask people to give you something they can't give you yet because there hasn't been a connection made. So I started off, I'm going to go back to this slide here. So it's one of the benefits of Peer Deck not working right now. I can go back to the slide. So we started off here in the beginning where I said, I just want you to self-reflect. And I told you I'd come back and tell you why I asked you to do that. And I said, I'm not going to have you share out. Here's why. We just met each other. And this is a personal question for some people. What's filling your bucket today? Like, what's really bringing you joy? But what's also draining you is a real personal piece. And if I ask you to start sharing that out right away and we don't know each other, sometimes what you get is crickets. But if I ask you to self-reflect and put that down in your own personal notes, then you're more willing to participate and do that. So when I first started with my staff here, we did not do a lot of sharing out. We didn't know each other, okay? But we did do a lot of self-reflection. And then once those self-reflections became things where we were starting to build and grow with each other, then we started sharing out with each other, and we were creating a safe environment. So that's all part of trying to create a culture of advocates where you create the space to be safe first, and then you'll start to see more people be willing to advocate because you took the time to create the safe environment first before you started jumping in and asking for people to start giving you information. So that's why we started off with me asking you to self-reflect first. And then I told you what I'm hoping that we walk away from, but I also brought your voice in and said, here's what I'm thinking, but you tell me what you also like to see. So that's why we built that together like that. So here, the next thing that we do on our campus is, I know some of you guys probably when you're like in meetings, you'll have people ask, let's set a norm today. We also call them, a way to make sure that we're following the rules of the group. So what I always ask my staff is, what norm do we need to set so you can be present right now? Now, we don't do norms like be on time, do your work, be kind to one another. Those are professional standards that should always be at practice for all people who are involved in any organization. We talk about norms. What do you need from me right now so you can be present? One of the things that we always do is like, I'll ask a staff member, if I know that I have a staff member right now who has a parent in the hospital. What do you need from me right now for you to be present in our meeting and still feel like that you're accessible to your mom if she needs to be able to speak to you? And so she said to me, I just need to be able to have my cell phone with me. And if you see me on my cell phone, I'm not ignoring you. I'm on my cell phone because I'm able to speak with my mom. That's a norm that she needs. So I let my staff set those norms. Our norms change every meeting. Sometimes for my staff, they just need me to bring chocolate. I always have a bag of chocolate ready and I throw chocolate on the table. I need this meeting to be light and heavy today because my heart is heavy. Okay, so then I mix it up between what we have to get done and then whatever else I need to throw in there. So that's how we set our norms. So what I'd like for you guys to do for me, because what we were going to do is more interactive, I'm going to change it up a little bit. If you would be willing in the chat, what is one norm that you would need today for me to be aware of, for you to be present in our work together today? So if you'd be willing to share that in the chat, what is one norm that you would need so I could be aware? I would appreciate that. So what is one norm that you would need in order for me to know that you can be present today? What is one norm that you would like to see so I know that you can be intentional with our work today? Sherry, if I can get that chocolate to you, I'll get it to you. I see reflection time, responding in the chat. And if Ronette, if we may have to take a pause here. If I can get that Pear Deck to work, I'd love to get it to work. And if the group is good with that, I'd love to do that.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I'd love to do it.
There are several people who have said they would like more practice with Pear Deck.
Yeah,
And so if
would be
we
glad
can
to
get
help.
that going,
Yep.
super.
Okay.
Jofee, there was a really great question in there for suggestions on how to proceed if it's pointed out a staff member is not following a norm.
So I will tell you, here's what I normally do. I am not a fan of handing over the stage to inappropriate behavior. So if I notice that someone's not following the norm, I keep going because everybody else in the room needs to be celebrated for following the norm. And then I build in a break at a good place where everybody can be collaborative. And I go over and then I address the issue that needs to be addressed in a moment, but I don't do it in front of everybody. I take them off to the side. What's going on that we're not able to follow the norm today? And sometimes they'll tell me it's something personal and you're like, okay, that makes sense to me. Or if you find out it's nothing personal, they just don't want to handle it. They just don't want to be a part of the process. Then I give them a choice. I need you, if you're going to be present, I need you to be a part of this process. If you're not going to be able to be professional to be a part of the process, I'm going to have you step out because we're not going to impact everybody else that's in the room today. So if you're able to be a part of the process and sit and work and do what we need to do, great. If not, then if you need to step out, well, just know, if you step out, I'm still going to follow up with you because we're still going to do the work together and it may end up being one-on-one. So I don't let them out of they're not off the hook. But sometimes, sometimes adults can be very grumpy and what I've known with behaviors do not discriminate between being an adult or a child. Behaviors are behaviors are behaviors. And so what I've seen happen in 2-year-olds throwing a fit, I've seen it in adults throwing a fit. I've seen 11-year-olds have hurt feelings, and I've seen 40-year-olds have hurt feelings. Behaviors are behaviors. And so if I can find out in the moment what's causing the issue, I'll address it. And if it's just plain, I'm just being grumpy, then you either can be a participant, or if you step out, you're still going to have to do the work. At a time, it's probably going to be inconvenient. So, and that's how I handle it. So, and they know that, but I will tell you, because of the fact that I am very predictable with my timing and schedules, I send agendas out ahead of time. There's work to be done. I send it out ahead of time. The staff knows that. And so they pretty much already prepared enough to know what's going to happen. So I have never had a staff member not participate at all. I've never had that. Thank you guys for that. Okay, so here we go. All right, so where we left off, we were talking about what norm would you need today. And so I'm gonna add that extra norm of grace. Thank you so much for your kindness, and to have a tech person on cue with you at all times might be a great norm to have. So thank you, Rachel, for that. And huge thanks to all of you guys for being so patient with that. But so this is life, right? Real time. This is what happens all the time now for all of us. And I will tell you, that's a great example of what could happen with your people. And if you don't have a really good culture in place, your people won't stay in there with you, they'll leave you. So thank you so much for you guys doing that with me. I appreciate it. All right, so we're going to go off here to my reality. All right, so my story starts with me moving to Texas. My husband got a job in Texas, and he stayed in Texas a whole year. He never returned to Kansas at all. And the joke I always say is I had to come out to Texas to find my husband. So my boys and I traveled to Texas and ended up making Texas our home. And I was offered a position here in Texas to be a principal, one of our districts, large districts out here. And me not knowing at the time that my son was going through his own personal trauma. So my story begins with me on the day that I have to go take my principal test for Texas. And this is the story as to why I lead the way I lead now. My son was asleep in his room, and I got dressed, ready to go take my test. And I walked into his room to, tell him I was leaving. And I touched him on the shoulder. And when he rolled over, I found a blade underneath him. Now the blade was about that size there, and it was a blade that you find in a razor that you use on your face or ladies use on their legs, like the big razor. He had broken the big razor, and he was careless that night and fell asleep and forgot to hide the blade. So I of course, my first thought was, surely it's an accident. There's just no way. But I will tell you in the moment, I had a couple things that came to mind. I started doing like flashbacks, playing a movie in my head of some things that I have seen regarding his behavior leading up to that moment. Things like my son never wears pants. He always wears shorts. But he was fully clothed, almost like he had snuck out and snuck back in and forgot to change his clothes. He was completely clothed and was sleeping in a jacket zipped all the way up, hoodie. So I knew something was wrong. So I grabbed the blade, ran to my bathroom to hide the blade in the bathroom. And as soon as I looked up in the mirror, my son was standing over my shoulder. I never, ever heard my son come up behind me, ever. Never heard him. He asked me what I was doing. I asked him what he was doing. And I lied. And I just said, I was just, getting ready to leave. And I'm just trying to find something to, put away in the bathroom. Are you okay? He goes, yeah, I'm good. I'll see you when you get back. And we walked out of the bathroom together. He sat down in the living room. He waved at me and I waved by. What I always say is that's the last time my son saw my son for a while. What I mean by that is that was the last time I saw a son that I knew. I left and I made a choice in that moment to go take my test, because I will tell you, whatever was happening with him, he was already so far gone, and he looked okay. And I made a selfish decision. I decided to go take my test. So I took my test. I came back and he met me at the door, and I started asking him questions. Can you tell me some more about what I saw? What's going on? Now I know he lied to me. I accepted what he gave me, but then I started keeping notes regarding what I saw. Fast forwarding the story, what we ended up finding out about my son, we found out Christmas Eve night. This happened in November, so Christmas Eve night. I don't remember what led up to me discovering. So I think there's parts trauma ourselves, but I do remember him and I having a conversation standing in the hallway. I said something to him that sparked something in him. And then I grabbed his shirt, and he was still wearing that jacket, and I made him show me his arms. What transpired to that was the fact that I had received a phone call that morning from his school. My son was participating in an activity where they would move a bracelet very similar to this. If you are in the middle of something traumatic, put it on the other wrist. If you have something you are hiding and you don't want anybody to know, put it on your wrist. My son was hiding that he was cutting himself. And so when the principal called me that morning, I didn't believe it. And it was a hard one. I had to leave to go to a staff meeting. So I just found out from the principal that my son is doing something to himself that I had never heard of before. I didn't know what that was. I ran to the staff meeting, and during the staff meeting, we had some hard conversations about some things. And I asked the staff to give me some feedback. How are things going? Talk to me, let me know how things are happening. And wrong way to do it. Again, I don't do it like that anymore. But, I set them up to give me the truth, but my heart wasn't ready to receive the truth, knowing that I just heard about my son. And so a staff member stood up and said, we're overwhelmed. and you're asking us all these questions. We don't have time for this right now. And I stood there and started crying in front of the staff. And to the point where I didn't realize how I was crying. And I ended the staff meeting, and I had a line of staff members that stood in front of me to hug me. They just kept hugging me and just kept hugging me. I finally got away from the group, walked away, went into my office, sat down. I never told them what happened. They kept asking me what's wrong. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Finally, though, I'm not fine. And I get home and I have a conversation with my son. I share with him what his teacher told us. And then fast forwarding back to that moment with the shirt, I think we both just snapped. And I remember grabbing him and I said, show me. And he pulled up his arms here. And my son had written sentences all over him with a blade. We rushed him to the emergency room. And what we found out in the emergency room is that my son was one of the worst cases they had ever seen in the area. Boys do not typically cut. It's usually a girl trait. It is not a boy trait. So it's like 1 in 4 is what they told me. We had to make a decision in the moment of what we needed to do. And he was so severe that he needed to go to a facility that would help him with his problem. So as a family, we had to quickly get into gear to figure out what to do. It's Christmas break, New Year's Eve. It's things are closed. That was the year of the bad weather. If you guys had ever heard out here in Texas, the really bad weather we had. It was the bad weather, ice everywhere. We couldn't drive. We didn't know what to do. But we did end up having him go and get support. And then I had to work very closely with the school to help him with his situation he was in. He had to unenroll from school. A lot of traumatic things. And it was embarrassing for us. I took it as an embarrassing. So this is where I was in the moment. I was really embarrassed. I was hurt. I was traumatized. I didn't want to talk about it. I never shared with anybody what was happening. People would ask me, how are you doing? I'm fine. I covered everything up. But what I was doing is during the school day, I'm the principal and I'm helping parents with their kids. I'm helping parents come up with strategies and resources to help save their kids. But at nighttime, I'm trying to save my own kid. I actually watched my son a few times slit his wrist right in front of me. I've watched him try to commit suicide right in front of me. It was bad. Marriage was hard. Friendships were hard. Life was hard. I blamed God, and I love God. Anybody who knows me, and I blamed him. Fast forwarding, I will tell you, after many, many months and years of support and resources and therapy as a family, my son ended up graduating from high school early, got a scholarship into a college, met the girl of his dreams, got married, and that baby I showed you that fills my cup, that is my grandson. So in between all that, some of the mistakes that I made was trying to lead a campus hurting when I did not have anything to give. I did not tell my district what was happening at all. My superintendent kind of found out because I had to tell her some things because I had to leave to go to undisclosed locations to pick him up and, drive on Friday nights to praying that he'll let me come see him at the facility just to get there an hour later, and he refused me at the door. Lots of trauma, lots of hurt, and she was aware, and she was willing to work with me, and she said, I will stick with you, give you whatever you need. She ended up leaving the district. We have a brand new person that came on, and I will tell you, for me, it was time for me to step back. I could no longer be the principal that I needed to be. I could not lead, I couldn't support, I couldn't provide what was needed. I needed to be a mom. So I stepped back and became that full-time mom for my son and became an assistant principal off to the side to help support a brand new principal. So they asked me to help support a brand new principal. So I did that. And so during the day, I'm supporting her. And at night, I'm supporting my son to help him be better. I'm not mentioning my husband only because my husband and I made a choice. I became front and center while my husband continued to work to make the money and I was still making money. but I needed to be front and center. My husband did all the other things off to the side, but my husband was also there as well. So that's what happened. So when my son finally became able to function, he said to me, "Mom, you can go back and do what you love. I know you love helping families and teachers and students. I'm ready." And I asked him, "What helped you to get back to your place?" And he said, "I found my own self-worth." So his story helped me become the leader that I am, and all part of finding ways to help people advocate for themselves is about them also finding self-worth and you being able to help them cultivate that in the workplace. So my son has a lot to do with why I do what I do now. So that is what I call my reality. And so have you ever given someone else a motivational speech while you're hurting on the inside? That's a reflective question that I want you to think about. So earlier we talked about writing down notes and reflection. So on the right-hand side, that's your question. Have you ever had to give a motivational speech? Have you ever had to help support somebody or take a call or answer a text, answer an email, and you were also hurting on the inside? So I'll let you reflect on that question here for a few moments while I advance the screen to the next part. Okay, so while you're reflecting on that, if you ever want to hear the full story, if you actually write this down in your notes, all you have to do is write down episode 9, hashtag tell your story, Jofee Tremain. If you write that in the web search, you will find my story. Ted Nessaloni, who is an author of the Kids Deserve It series, he actually has his own web series, and I was invited onto his series, and so my full story is there. So if you ever would like to hear the full story of it, you're welcome to do that. All right, so that leads up to leading in a new season of life, and that's what I do right now. And so the challenge is being able to follow your call, being able to balance that grace with accountability. Our environment requires all of us to be all in, providing self-care opportunities for your staff. The reason why I asked you to reflect on, have you ever had to help others when you're hurting? It's important for staff to know. My staff here knows my full story. They know when I'm hurting, they know when I'm down, they know when I'm up, because I tell them so they can understand in the moment. They may be asking me for something, but I'm not sure if I could give it to them. We're just vulnerable with each other like that, so they are aware. I also made it a part of our campus goals that the campus goal and my principal goal is all about staff emotional learning. So self-care of staff is a part of what we do. And because I made it a goal, if you write it down and make it a goal, it happens. So I made it a goal that I will take the time to take care of my staff. I also made it a goal that we will take the time to take care of ourselves. Okay, so that's one. And so part of that goal, the district also agreed to allow that to be a part of my goal. So they're on board with the fact that and here's the joy part of that. Now we're in COVID. I think everybody's trying to figure out how to take care of each other now. Our staff already made that a goal. And so it was for us going into COVID. Self-care wasn't an issue for us. It was the other pieces that we had to work through. So I was so thankful that we were already on board with taking care of each other and ourselves. So with COVID, we were able to pull that all together. So it was amazing for us. All right, so hopefully on your end, you see a question that has popped up on your screen. So hopefully you'll see a question. And Rachel, if you could be my thumbs up, you guys see a question on your screen? Okay. So your question on your screen, that question is designed to just get you to just be thinking, this reflection question. And so what I do with my staff, another way that I get them to reflect, I will come up with what we call connections. And when we do connections, my staff is okay with just sitting in silence. So in the beginning, when we started, and then there was moments when we were silent, well, you know, and I was working through Pear Deck and Rachel was helping me, you guys were giving me ideas in chat, and I just left it silent, but I didn't kind of add things to it. My staff is used to silence being there, and it's okay. Silence can be uncomfortable sometimes, but it's okay not to add things just to add. And so a way to add self-care on your campus, you don't always need to add something to the air. Silence is golden, and we don't have a lot of it. So we just let it rain down on our campus a lot when we come together in large groups. And now we're all on Zoom so much anyway now, that having silence there for some of my teachers, they love it because they're in the constant chaos right now with being on Zoom and off Zoom, that when they come together with me on Zoom and we just sit for like 2 minutes and I give them a question to reflect on, they just sit and reflect. So on the right-hand side, you have today, what is one item on your bucket list? Or what do you feel that you're called to do? And then so on the right-hand side, you're just gonna reflect on that. And then what we do 2 minutes of quiet time. I just have 30 seconds for us today to kind of practice that because we're getting kind of close to the end and we had some technical stuff. But I'm just gonna have you reflect on that and for about 30 seconds. And it's okay, what we're gonna do is enjoy the silence for 30 seconds of you reflecting on the right-hand side of that question. So for 30 seconds, we're just gonna enjoy the quietness for 30 seconds and let you reflect. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I've asked Ronette if we could let you guys do a breakout. And what we're gonna do in your breakout, I'm gonna have you've written some stuff down on the right-hand side. You've seen some questions that we've had today, but I just want you to reflect. What did you hear this morning that resonated with you thus far? And how can you apply that to the objective that you would like to walk away with that we talked about this morning? So it's just really, you're just kind of just talking. And so when you get together in your breakout room, you're just going to reflect on the morning thus far. So it doesn't even just have to be what we're talking about. It could be anything you talked about this morning. Just reflect on the morning. And then I want you to reflect on what is something that you heard that you want to apply, what resonated with you, and just think about that. And then Ronette, is it okay if they do about 8 minutes in that?
Sounds good.
Okay, and so we're just practicing on just reflecting on what you heard and how you can let that resonate with you. On the left-hand side, that's your application. So you've heard stuff today, that's the right side. And now on the left side, when you get together in your breakout room, that is the application. And what you're gonna do on the left side, you're gonna hear feedback from other people. If you hear something that they said, you're like, oh yeah, I can do that too. That's where on the left-hand side, you can write down what you heard somebody else said, because now you're gathering up other ideas and not just your own.
Ready?
Okay, so here's my question. Let's see if I can get at least 3 people to be willing to. So if I can get at least 3 people that be willing to unmute and just share something that resonated with them today, thus far.
I will say just that people are hurting. I mean, people are. And Julie was saying that since so many of us are virtual, we don't really even know. And I think it's really important for us to remember. Like when I listen to the news in the morning, it's all bad news every morning. It's hard. So thank you for that reminder.
You can also share in the chat if you'd like, if unmuting is not your thing. Oh, Morgan, go ahead.
Oh, no worries. I was just gonna say that I really took away the giving staff space. I was kind of reflecting on participating into our staff meetings and also leading, doing both of those, and even thinking about, because we have been virtual all year, we feel very disconnected from each other, even though we've known each other for so long. It still feels very disconnected. And even with our staff meeting this week, we always have them on Tuesday, getting put into breakout rooms, and we always have a purpose. But I would really like to put something in there where we take a couple minutes to really just do a check-in. How are you doing? What is going on in your life? I haven't been able to see or talk to you, especially if they're not on your team. We teach in teams. So I think that would be really meaningful and something that we really need to work on to make sure that we are still connected to our staff and colleagues in some way.
Morgan, you touched on, I will tell you the key thing that the staff may not know how to tell you, but I figured out with my staff, they just want to be able to talk. And so having you guys go out in the breakout rooms, and I just gave you just a random thing to really talk about. I didn't ask you to do any work, and so they can't do anything else right now. And so just being able to talk to each other and see what Morgan is saying is true. They are starving for the attention of each other. And in my room, we talked about how I've got people across the hall virtual, and you can run the risk of never seeing them because they're virtual, but you've got to take time to go over and see them. And so I have some ideas on how we do that here so we can still stay connected. So I'll show you guys some of that. One more person be willing to share, you think? If not, we can, looks like I see some, oh, there's some stuff here in the chat. And it says, take time to be kind and recognize the needs of your colleagues, and we work better when we care about each other. I found my self-worth. What are we doing to instill this in ourselves? Cassidy gave a great suggestion of making a today I accomplished list. Oh, I love that. I'm modeling the values of vulnerability. In our group, we talked about how being vulnerable as a leader used to be a no, but guess what? Now everybody wants to be like, everybody needs to be vulnerable. You've got to show that you care. You've got to let that side come out of you. And it's got to be authentic, because your people need to really, truly see the real side of you. My staff has seen me, when I say cry on Zoom, they have seen me cry. And I'm tired, and they're tired, and we're just really honest with each other, but we're holding each other up. If somebody leans to the left, somebody's there, we pull each other up and we just keep going. And that's just what we do. And it doesn't mean that they're not doing their work, because they are, but the staff knows I support them. And just as a leader, I would ask them, if you had to describe one thing about me that you feel I'm doing very well right now, what is that? And what can I do to help you be more present right now that you need done? And if you present it like that for them, that's better versus what do you need? They don't know how to tell you, or what they need, you can't give them. But what can I do to help you be present right now? For some of them, it could be, could you just be available so I can run to the restroom? Can I just text you? Can I call you? Can you go get me a soda? Something like that, okay? All right, so leading in my purpose allows my passion to be pleasing. And I love being a leader who remembers that I have human beings on this campus. I have human beings with husbands, wives, children. So when we were all completely virtual, I had teachers with kids on their laps, and I waved at the kids and kept talking to their parents. I had my dog with me. My husband walked by and waved. Like, we're all human, and it's just what it is. They were so professional when it was time for them to be teaching with their kids, but when it was us time on Zoom, I let them just feed their kids, talk to their dogs, wave to their husbands, whatever they needed to do, because we needed to be vulnerable with each other. We met once a week. We met twice a week virtually. On Tuesdays, it was all business for 30 minutes, and they knew we're coming to talk about kids. Every Thursday, it was social and emotional time. 30 minutes, we played games, we talked to each other, we checked in, I gave them updates, and then I released them off Zoom. So they knew Tuesdays were always going to be work time, Thursdays, playtime. So Morgan, that's kind of how we did it. And so they had a predictable agenda. They knew that was going to happen. And what I discovered from them is that when COVID hit and I'm completely off campus away from them, I was taking from them their resource and other key people, and we created virtual times that they could always find us. So every Tuesday, I'm sitting on Zoom every Tuesday from 7 a.m. until 6, and every Thursday, I sat there from 7 until 6. And if they needed me, I'm there. And then Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I sat there from 3 until 4 if they needed me. And sometimes people showed up and sometimes they didn't, but I sat there because my virtual room became just like my office here or me walking up and down the hallway. So I mimicked everything online that we do in person. We actually made sure the way we do it virtually and in person, we always start with a purpose, and then we make sure that with our purpose, that as a team we come together, we're very collaborative. We always talk about exactly what it is that we need to focus in on. We collect the feedback from our staff. We ask the staff, what do you know? How should we do it? We always have topics pertaining to each thing that we're working on, and we celebrate small victories along the way. We were already doing that in person, and then when COVID hit, we just transferred that to online. So everything we did in person, we found a way to draw it to make it online. So that way the community for my staff continued to feel, look, and sound the same. Because the only thing was different, they didn't hear my footsteps in the hallway. I didn't hear their footsteps in the hallway, but we tried to mimic everything else. So if you can do that for your staff, your predictability and your, oh gosh, what's that word for? It's like you doing everything you normally would do. They need that right now because that's the only constant that makes sense. COVID doesn't make sense, but you always showing up at 8 o'clock, when you always show up at 8 o'clock, makes sense for them. I won't play these videos today and because of time, but let's see here. I want to go down to
Jofee, any videos or that sort of thing, we will just put in the online binders so people can go there and grab those resources.
Okay. Is it okay if I just kind of just walk through some strategies real quick for them?
Absolutely, please do.
So we'll do that just because of time for you guys. So one of the things that for strategy, what we did when I first started on this campus, my office actually had a giant window and everybody can always see in. But I will tell you, just because I had a big window, it doesn't mean they saw me. So don't allow the big window to get in the way of you actually being accessible to your staff. So I moved my office. I'm no longer up front at the front doors. I'm actually down the hall, across the hall from a first grade classroom. My office looks like one of the classrooms here. So basically, when kids walk by, they see me here, or I go out and see them, but I'm in the midst of all the work that's happening. I'm down in the trenches with my staff, and I did that because of COVID. I felt like I needed to be closer down with them instead of up front. I'm down with them. We have a care team on our campus. We started that care team last year, and our care team, they're the group of people that go around and do the litmus test on our campus. They will check in with staff, let me know how things are going. They're the ones that I send emails to. How does this read? Do you think the staff will take this okay? And they will give me the thumbs up, or they'll rewrite it and say, no, make it sound like this, because that's not where the staff is right now. They're the team that they're on call. And if you send them a text, they're the ones that will run up and help support you in a classroom so you can step out if you need to. I had a teacher who recently admitted that she was suicidal on campus. And because of the fact that she was able to reach out to someone on campus, we were able to help support her. But the purpose of that care team is to be front and center at all times to help support any staff member on campus. And I'm a part of that care team, my 2 counselors. And this year the care team grew because teachers volunteered to be a part of it because they really see the value of it. So we have a team of 10 people now. They're on that team and they're spread out among the campus, and their job is just to be front and center and available to whoever needs it. And it's an amazing group of people to be front and center to help support one another. We do have a house system on our campus, and I can share more about the house system later on, maybe when Colin and I do the principal thing later, and I can share how an example of what that is. But if you know anything about Ron Clark and his academy, or if you're familiar with Harry Potter, and they have like the systems they have set up, we have that on our campus. So I'm in the greenhouse. So every Thursday I wear my house color, and everybody on campus is in a specific community, and we support one another in our community. We check on one another in our community. We call each other, we play games, we have fun. And so every Thursday you'll see that on our campus. It's chaotic fun, and it's a lot of fun for us, and we love that. And we actually kept that going on our campus when we went online with COVID. We actually did keep our house system going. So that kept us staying in the loop with one another. We keep the work very simplified. So I chunk everything to my staff. I don't send them long emails. I just tell them right now what they need. They don't need all this stuff. I just need you to show up at 3 o'clock, and that's all I send them. My district is bought into the way that we're caring for each other on campus, so that's great there. Any type of a meeting that I have on campus with my staff, if it's not on Zoom, if I need to talk to them about an observation or things like that, I do not have staff come see me in my office at all. I always go directly to their environment, and I do that because all their stuff is there in their room, but their environment's comfortable. And sometimes, the office always kind of feels weird, and so I go straight to them. In our emails that I send to staff, I color code emails. In the subject line, if it's a red, that means they need to stop and open it right away. If it's a yellow, they have a couple of days to open it. And if it's a green, they can open it anytime they feel like. And that system that I put in place as far as communication for them, they love it and ask me to bring that back. And I still do that to this day as far as communicating with my staff. So I chunk and color code and only send them what they need. We do gratitude walks on our campus. They know when they see me just walking around with no particular purpose of ending up anywhere other than just kind of walking around the campus, they say, oh, she's on her walk. And it's just a walk of gratitude. And I just walk around. And if you walk around excited and happy and gracious, they will do the same. And they respect that space that I'm in when I'm doing that. And I respect their space. And it's great to see people just walk around just being gracious. And it's so needed right now for people to just see the positive in what we're doing. So those are some of the things that we do there. Another thing that we do, we have something called the one-stop shop. And a lot of these are links that I can just send to you guys so you can see it. The one-stop shop is we came up with a Google form, and everything staff needs to know, we created hyperlinks for them. So all they have is one piece of paper, and it really looks like one piece of paper, and they just click the link of everything that they need. instead of asking them to go find it in the Google Drive, because even that was overwhelming for them. So creating this one-stop shop, and they just click on it and it takes them to everything that they need. Those kind of things that you can create for them, they would really love that. And then we also have things like we have our campus s'more that we do, and that campus s'more is just tidbits of information that the staff needs, so they know exactly what they need to do to be successful the next day.